Well, you've heard about plug-in vehicles for a while, maybe even driven a Volt. According to Bloomberg New Energy Finance team, chances are you may have a plug-in vehicle in your garage in the next 3 years. With more, we are joined right now by Albert Cheung. He is an analyst in our New Energy Finance team. Albert, thanks so much for joining us this morning. So what are the chances that we see EVs, electric vehicles, moving from niche to mainstream?
Deirdre, that's exactly right. I mean, the car industry has been talking about electric vehicles for decades now, but with not very much action historically. But what we're seeing now is the major automakers are all putting in plans to introduce electric vehicles over the next few years. And that's not the only thing that's changed. The cars themselves are different as well. Electric vehicles a year or two ago, you'd be talking about a high-end sports car like a Tesla Roadster or a boxy little city car with a 13-mile-per-hour top speed. Now, when we talk about electric vehicles, we're talking about normal, well-built, high-quality cars that you and I might drive.
So, Albert, how many manufacturers are producing electric vehicles? How many this year versus last year?
Well, historically we've seen manufacturers produce a couple of hundred here, a couple of hundred there, and Tesla's a great example. What a pioneer. They really proved the concept, generated a lot of attention, successful IPO just a few weeks ago, but they've only sold about 1,200 cars so far. What's happening now is that all of the major automakers are going to ramp up production. By the end of this year, there's going to be about 10,000 produced. Next year, I think capacity will be around 100,000. And by 2013, we think there could be as many as 700,000 electric vehicles rolling off production lines.
All right, Albert, you say Tesla is an example of success, but there's still a lot of skeptics out there. How much do these cars cost? Can the average person spend more for an EV just to feel greener?
Well, exactly. When you look at the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Volt, these cars, they're going to cost around $30,000 to $40,000, maybe $50,000, depending on which model you're looking at. And when we look at the US car industry, we think there's only probably around a third of buyers that are able to afford that. Then you factor in the range issues and charging infrastructure issues, and you're looking at maybe only 10% of people can really look at these cars. So it's still tough to be green. The good news is that running costs for electric vehicles are extremely low, so you can make up that difference over the course of the lifetime of the vehicle. And of course, government subsidies can help. And in the longer run, we see battery costs coming right down. At the moment, the lithium-ion battery makes up about a third of the cost of the electric vehicle. And as that comes down and manufacturing goes up, the cars are going to get cheaper. So
you mentioned government subsidies. How much is this industry dependent on what various governments want to give over to the cause?
Well, right now it makes a big difference. So in the US, you can get $7,500 off the purchase price of an electric vehicle. And that brings the Nissan Leaf down to about $25,000, which starts to look very competitive. And in the UK, we've got £5,000 subsidy coming out next year. In Denmark, they've got 180% sales tax on vehicles that's waived for electric vehicles. So right now, governments are doing a lot, and it's really important to support the technology for right now. But as I said, longer term, the costs are going to come down, the subsidies won't be needed anymore, and they will be withdrawn after a few years.
Albert, I heard you talk about Mitsubishi. We've talked about Tesla. Who else is in the game?
Well, we got Nissan and GM bringing out their electric vehicles this year. Next year, we've got Toyota bringing out their plug-in Prius. We've got Ford with a Focus electric vehicle, and Renault, with a couple of models coming out next year. And if you look at, who's being the most ambitious, you have to pay attention to the Renault-Nissan alliance. And when you look at the numbers, about half of the total production that we're projecting is accounted for by those two companies.
Albert, we thank you so much. Albert Cheung joining us there from Bloomberg's bureau in London.